Hi, everybody. We'll wait a few moments while everybody joins in here. Apologies, it took me about 2 minutes to be able to find the live video link, but I think we got it now. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. Feel free, leave a comment if you have any questions. Currently, we have 3 of them queued up. We're looking for an additional 2, and we'll try and keep this to as close as we can to the 6 to 6:30 timeline that we set out. It'll be around there. Stick around a little later if you want. You can always give me a call if you want on my cell phone, give me an email, any questions that we didn't get to in the show or that you didn't feel comfortable asking personally there. Aha, there I am, says me in the comments. All right, let's see. All right, everybody. Well, let's get started. I think we have about 6 viewers right now, 7 viewers. If you don't know, my name is Jaron Brandon. Right, there we go, guy on the sign. I'm running to be your county supervisor for District 5 for Tuolumne County. District 5 encompasses the areas of Columbia and Jamestown and west of the city of Sonora, including Stent, Tuttletown, all the way up until the county line. I'm born and raised local here. I grew up, in the musical community, arts community. My mother was a professional musician here for many decades. A lot of hearts and wonder there. Thank you, everybody. And son of a small business owner, business I currently manage up here, Live Oak Music, up in East Sonora. Went away to UC Merced and really realized just how special it is in the community up here. Now, coming back, this is exactly what I was looking for. It's a place where I want to build my home for the rest of my life. It's a community that's real. It's memories. It's a place that I think has an authenticity that you can't replicate in any other area. And yet we're also an area with some very serious issues. Coming back is actually kind of an exceptional thing. There are very few people who end up going off to college and coming back to our area. Frankly, young people are fleeing. We're having older people being priced out of our community. And it feels very much like we're waiting on something to happen, that we're an area that things happen to, instead of an area that is able to determine its own future. And looking at that and wanting to actually just volunteer, to get involved, to help be a part of the solution, I realize that our problems are a lot bigger than that. And we need someone to step up. And I ask myself, who am I waiting for? Who are we waiting for to try and step up and fight for the living issues that I personally struggle with, and I think so many of you struggle with, of trying to find an affordable place to live, to try and find a living wage career and business investment, and trying to have a government that restores your trust, that encourages public input, that encourages transparency. I think those are the 3 barriers and the 3 things we really have to overcome to make sure that families and people can still build a life here in Tuolumne County. That's the core of this platform. It's all about the people of Tuolumne County. How do we make it to where you are not forced to have to live in another area because you can't find, with your skills and your talents and your abilities, a way to make a living here and to build a life? We'll go into a little bit, what we've seen with the county over the past decade and, probably before as well. Unfortunately, has been leadership that has oftentimes felt very distant. And when we look around, we see many issues in the community frankly, have been left for years and years and years until they become crises. We're talking about our fire services, which have, we'll go into a little bit later, but a severe funding issue, and we're not ready for catastrophic fire. We're talking about crumbling infrastructure and roads in our community. We're talking about annual budget shortfalls and massive cuts to services because we haven't been able to find a way to boost our economy and adapt to the new world that we're in. I think we need someone on the board that is taking on these issues and is actually trying to get something done on it. I think we need diversity on the board, and I think we need people that are open to ideas, that want to see us have a future here, that care about our community and our culture, and at the same time realize that the best way to keep our community historic and our history and our culture alive is to make sure that it never loses its relevancy, that we are constantly adapting, we are constantly growing, we are constantly redefining what it means to be a Tuolumne County native here. We have a beautiful community, and I think we need to realize that. from our leadership. So into our first question, it was discussing our wildfire safety. What do we plan to do to be able to ensure that we are prepared for catastrophic fire and our fire services are ready to keep us safe up here? There's a few issues that we have with fire service, and this is a huge issue for the county, and I really appreciate the question. As many homeowners know, if you rent, you might be spared the direct cause, but through fire insurance, we're seeing rates double, triple, even higher than that if you're able to get coverage at all. And that is a massive problem that we've faced, and unfortunately we've heard very little from our county board of supervisors. While they talk to CSAC and RCRC, which are like lobbying groups that we pay for with other county governments, individually here, we have not tried to use our voice to be able to speak up and say how much this is hurting people. So my plan to be able to address that is I think our public leadership, frankly, needs to do some public leadership. They need to, and we, I should say, be able to get a bus, go down to Sacramento, hold a rally with our regional partners, and say this is an issue that we're facing. People are losing their livelihoods and their homes. And why are we not taking measures to avoid another paradise? Why are we waiting for something like that to happen before we finally get attention? If we don't have the votes or the money of the fairly rich and well-off urban areas, what we do have is our voice, and we have to use that. The second thing is we have to find a more sustainable model for fire service funding. Currently this year, we have about a $7.5 million capital expenditure deficit. That's related to our engines, that's related to our equipment. As an example, the Columbia Fire District operates on, I think, about an $80,000 a year budget. Next year, they have to get a new scuba apparatus. That apparatus is going to cost potentially $160,000. 2 years of their budget. They operate on a shoestring. We also look at all the Type 1 big engines and that. Many of them are 15, 25, 35 years old. One of those breaks down on the way to a fire, or just the fact that they don't have modern equipment could let a fire get out of hand and damage our community and threaten us. We've done 2 internal studies. We've done a $100,000 matrix study, and it's time for the board to finally take action. It's a hard issue. It's going to be a hard conversation. It's going to be a heated conversation. At the same time, we have this dual model of fire districts locally, and we have CAL FIRE through the Tuolumne County Fire Department, and we have to figure out which one's going to be, I think, cost-effective for our region. What we're doing right now is not working, and we're currently putting in, I believe, $1.4 million per year from the general fund to supplement that that service. It's unsustainable. We know what to do. We need to have that discussion. And at the end of it, we need to actually make a decision. I have more on my website. You can go to jaronfor5.com/fire and talk more about that. And lastly, one of the things of living in a WUI area, which is wildland-urban interface, it's where people live and forests kind of intermix. Most of our county exists in this high fire risk zone. And fuel reduction, since the natural fire cycle has been so interrupted for decades and decades, if not centuries, fuel reduction is a very important part of that. There's a group called YSS, Yosemite Stanislaus Solutions. It's where environmentalists and Sierra Club get together with SPI, with local industry interests, and people that you would think have diametrically opposed views find common ground. Industry and business, they don't like long and expensive lawsuits. They like being able to get things done. And environmentalists also would like to make sure that we're protecting our local community resources here. The best way, I think, for both to be able to get their interests solved is always communication. It's always talking. It's always finding common ground. YSS, I think, is a model collaborative, and I really want to continue supporting the work that they do to be able to responsibly reduce fuels in our area, provide the fuel breaks for firefighters to help stop catastrophic wildfire, and ensure that our community is safe when any fire breaks out. So we have the second question here is, how do I plan to address drug abuse in our community? This is a really hard one. Drugs in particular, it falls in with a kind of triad of other problems. We have homelessness, we have issues related to mental health, and we have issues related to drug abuse. There is overlap over a lot of those, especially where you have intersectionality of those issues. It's very challenging to treat. And I think the core cause of why we're seeing a very different nature of folks struggling with substance abuse, struggling with housing up here, it's a crisis of hope. What we fight, or what we're finding, is a crisis of people looking at our community here, working a minimum wage job, putting all of their time into that, and barely able to make it. Even though we are a rural area, the prices that we're facing up here for apartments or for housing is so high that next door you're being forced to have to go into another county. That is a huge challenge. And so a lot of my platform indirectly, I think, will help with this. If we're able to have pro-business policies and bring in investment here, if we're able to bring in a housing that is not going to be turned to an Airbnb and is not just giant single flats of very expensive homes, but places normal people, working people can afford, that's going to be a critical thing in giving them hope for the future. That, I think, is the number one solution to drug abuse, is trying to stop people at the beginning of that funnel, give them meaning, give them purpose, and give them a way to provide for themselves and their family. The second thing is, I think we need, for a lot of our services, we have a lot of great community resources. We have nonprofits, we have churches, we have government programs from the state and county, and a bunch in between that are all working at this from different angles. I think one thing we've struggled with in the county is bringing together all these great works, these great and talented people, and having a kind of unified vision moving forward. What this is called in, for example, the Central Sierra Continuum of Care is a unified entry, a single entry point. And in discussions early on with behavioral health, I'd like to work with them to help create what's called a navigator program. Think of it like a college counselor for social services. So if you go in there, you're not going to face a door where you say, hey, I finally got the courage to ask for help. I want to make myself better. And they say, actually, you're at the wrong office. You got to go to that one. One where someone's working with you to wrap you in care, to make sure that if you are struggling with drug abuse, you may very well be struggling with homelessness or related to job placement or mental health, whatever brought you, the core trauma, trying to make sure that we're addressing all of the issues at once, that we're pulling together all of these separate resources into one place to discuss how we can best serve this population and actually get them back on their feet. I think that's the best way, giving all of the care at once to make sure we help this person get the help that they need, as opposed to trying to treat each thing individually. If you try and give a drug addict, NA or other types of therapy, and yet they're having to return to a homeless campsite every single night, that is money that's more likely than not going to be wasted. If you are homeless and we're trying to give you housing placement, but you have a drug addiction and we're not addressing that, that is, again, going to probably be a waste of money. So it's circling them with care. It's making sure when they ask for help, we're able to direct them to everything that they need. And I think it's an individualized approach that works with that. Again, another collaborative, more communication, more working together. In addition to that, I'd like to create a standing committee at the county on homelessness. This has been an issue. This has not come up in just the last year. We've seen this go from when I was a kid, the local wildlife, we call them. It's probably not politically correct, but out at the Charlie, they'd be drinking and that. We've seen a very different nature of homelessness up here now. I'm seeing people my age, people perhaps with nothing obviously wrong, people who are struggling with mental health issues and drug abuse issues, again, that have just lost hope. And the deeper and deeper and deeper they get into that funnel, the harder it is to be able to take them out. We've also seen some discussion of homelessness that creates a large report at the end of a 70-page compendium of what we need to do, and yet we don't see a lot of action taken. Indeed, the only action taken by the county has been hiring a homelessness coordinator based on a grant fund that's going to run out in 2 years. And we have a habit of doing that, where we build these great programs that are grant funded. The grant runs out, we're unable to continue it, and it all falls apart. What I'd like to see is a committee with all of the people working on this issue, sitting together, one at a time, finding these issues and figuring out what we can do about it. Whether it is sanitation in the various camps, whether it is trying to make sure that crime is not happening, as we know that homeless people are also very likely to be victims of crime, and a high-risk population for that. If it's trying to find places that are safe sites to park and how we manage that. One issue at a time, working through it. And that is a committee that I want to sit on at the county, lead up, put together. It's finally time that we take some action on homelessness. And I believe our rates are 3 times that of what we see in San Francisco, in the Bay Area. Due to the rural nature of our county, it's easy for a lot of it to blend in. We're talking latchkey households for kids that go home without parents there. We're talking about people living in their cars and RVs, people you may very well work with who could wear a shirt and tie, that can't find work and can't find a place to live. I'll tell you, in looking for a place to live when I began this campaign, there's only ever about 2 spots available in the entire district, a district of 10,000 people. Think about that. That is not a workable model. And imagine how frustrating and the desperation that creates. I think a committee at the county is going to show that we're going to put our money where our mouth is. It's going to be a way to work on policy. It's going to be a way to actually take action. Lastly, a large part of trying to combat, I think, drug abuse is the drug supplies coming into the county. It's addressing the dealers. It's addressing a lot of the folks that are profiting off of that industry. And that means we have to support our law enforcement. What we have faced with law enforcement is a decade of austerity cuts that have crippled their capacity to be able to do their core job. We're talking about a department that has only, I believe, about 5 detectives able to investigate crimes, unable to have the staff resources to investigate crimes under about $1,000, and a limited number of patrols, something that we felt definitely in Jamestown that's been brought up in the Jamestown Promotion Club a few weeks ago. That's something that I think needs to be addressed. And potentially that may be a revenue solution. Long term, it's going to have to be an economic solution. But we need to find funding to be able to put these people on the streets, to be able to show that our communities are safe and we're not going to tolerate that type of behavior, and that they're able to investigate and enforce the law in these areas. What we've seen with the Board of Supervisors is that reluctantly they've put a tax on the ballot, but then failed to have any courage to even say, I support this, it's a good idea, to completely defer it and to not run a campaign, to not build a coalition to pass. And the fact that in March, those 2 taxes failed, I think really was an example of the leadership that we've had, the kind of pass-off leadership. Someone else will do it. It'll happen or it won't. If that is such an important thing to put to voters, and we know that it would impact people negatively, at least some, it would put a financial burden. To do that and then not allow it to pass, I think is the greatest disservice that one could do in this county to law enforcement, to fire services, which have been so impacted by those cuts. So, long answer, but in short, I think we need to provide people opportunity to be able to build a life here and feel that it's going to get better over time. We need to create a single entry portal for services to wrap them in care. We need to address homelessness and make that a priority at the county, not just in words, but in action. And I think we need to find a way to better support law enforcement with the resources to be able to handle the criminal side of this problem. The third question we have is related to, I think, some of the recent discussion back and forth in our community about schools reopening. A blog was published by the incumbent supervisor saying, well, the school should open, but not really laying out any kind of plan of how to be able to get there. Saying we need to open, but we need to be safe, but these people need to stay at home, but we're not going to provide more services, and not really providing the answers of how we get there. My opinion is, right now we have twice in the very recent memory crossed over the state threshold for complete shutdown. And the only reason we have not been shut down is because the state is having an internal issue with reporting. Over a period of time, they are basically saying, okay, we need to fix this before we do it. Basically, we got lucky. That's the root of it. If we were to open schools right now, given the county response and handling of this crisis, given the fact that we have had incumbents, I think actively not only not showing, the little tiny things that say leadership by example, right? By giving fuel to the fire of saying, don't comply with public health, don't follow any practices that can make our community safer, that can keep our businesses open. Because of that, because of the situation we're in right now, if we were to reopen schools, as soon as we cross that threshold, we enter a 14-day period of shutdown again. What we need to be able to provide for the education of our local students is a stable learning environment. We need to be able to give staff and volunteers and teachers the time to prepare with all these new skills and things that they're going to have to learn for their new job, and some assurance. And we need parents to be able to plan more than 1 month or 2 weeks ahead at any one time. And the only answer in our current environment right now is we have to keep, at least for the first academic quarter semester, trimester, or period, we need to keep schools closed, and we need to focus on improving our online learning. And for our students that do not have access to online education, continuing to provide customized paper lesson packets, which the superintendent of schools is doing a good work, seems like, on that front. We need to be able to plan for this. And the goal for everybody is to reopen schools. We want to get kids back in the classroom, and we know this is extremely hard on parents. And that is a very salient argument. But we need to at least have the stability to plan and get through this, get our case numbers down, and then be able to reopen safely to make sure that our staff, to make sure that our teachers are going to be safe, to make sure that kids are not going to be spreading this to others, and to make sure that we're not putting them unnecessarily at risk. And I think there's a lot of unknowns right now in that. And it's very early on to say, I know for sure about this new virus and these new things with 100% certainty what's going to make sense. I think we're going to learn a lot more over the next few months, and we're going to be able to make a much better informed decision. I know a lot of people do want to reopen schools. I know that it's controversial to take a position on that issue. At the same time, I'm not afraid of being controversial and having that discussion and talking to people about it. And I'm very tired, and I think a lot of people are tired, of political leadership and public officials that frankly won't tell you where they stand, won't tell you what they think, and won't take a stand on any issue for fear of upsetting people. This is an important discussion to have. And if you have different views or different perspectives on that, please let me know. I developed this through hundreds of conversations with people and constantly being in interactions on Facebook. It's still a growing perspective, and I would appreciate your input there. Let me see if we have any questions. Got a lot of highs. Hey, everybody. Hey, Jason, Jessica, Sue. I think my dad's on the call. It's a lot of pressure, Dad. Let's see. Reviews. Hey, Becky. All right. If anybody wants to ask any questions real quick, we got a little bit of extra time. I think we got about 6 minutes left. Give it a moment. In the meanwhile, let me tell you a little bit about where we're at with the campaign. So I started this campaign almost about 13 months ago, 14 months ago, and we have about 97 days left before the election. In the March primary, we took a commanding lead over the incumbent. 2/3 of people wanted the incumbent Karl Rodefer out of office. They are dissatisfied with his leadership. After 8 years, they are dissatisfied with where we're at. We got a 49.1% share of the vote. The county government is kind of weird in that you can win in the primary or you can win in November. To win in the primary, you have to get 50%, and so I missed it by 39 votes. That close. But, you know, coming into November, I'm very excited. We're doing very well. And if you're watching this right now, I hope you're curious. I hope you're a supporter. Please sign up to volunteer, sign up to endorse. You can check out my website again. All of those resources are on the front page. It's JARONFOR and the number 5.com. And you can look up jaronfor5.com/donate/volunteer/endorse. We're off to a great start. We've been doing phone banking. We've been talking to a lot of voters. We continue to have a very active and responsive presence on social media with everybody. People who are critical, people who are supportive, people who want to learn more. And an open door policy on there. We will be doing outreach efforts in mind with COVID. It's very strange to run a campaign during a pandemic, but we want to keep that personal touch that's reaching out to people and giving them a chance to have a part in the process. So we'll be doing mailers, we'll be doing phone banking, we'll be doing things to try and tell them a little bit more about the campaign and invite them to contact me, ask me what I'm about, what the platform is, suggest ideas. In addition to that, we're planning on doing a voter registration drive coming up. 2 weeks, about 10 drives, done as safely as possible to unregistered voters in the district. We're also doing a lot of fundraising. You know, one of the things that got that 39 vote margin to help the incumbent win was the fact that he was able to privately dump almost, I think, $20,000 into his own campaign committee last minute. I don't think you should be able to buy an election. Unfortunately, the reality of it is I'm not a wealthy person. I work a retail job, and we've had extreme generosity coming forth from our donors. We're looking forward to buying Union Democrat articles online or Union Democrat ads, online ads, potentially another mailer to the district. Those expenses add up. We have a ticker on the website showing about how much we're looking to raise. Roughly, we're shooting for $15,000 for November, and we're already about $9,000 towards that goal, which is fantastic. And if you're willing to make a donation, if it's $5, if it's $100, it makes a big difference, and I really appreciate it. Lastly, if you can make an endorsement, either shoot a small video, post it on Facebook. What do you like about this campaign? What has made you fed up in the county? What do you want to see changed on the Board of Supervisors? Give us that message. You can also go onto my website and type out a written thing. You can write a letter to the editor. We have a form. It makes it a lot easier. It's just 250 words. Tell me what you're passionate about, what you see in this, what you're identifying with. And that speaks to people. I'm always the candidate out there. You know, people say, well, of course, you want to get elected. Your story of what resonates about this campaign is nothing without the supporters and the people who have put in their time and effort to help me be able to run this and get elected. And I thank them so much. And your stories, you're really the ones that make all of this happen. Getting that out there is powerful and it's important. See if we have any questions that come in. Let's see. And Susan, so I've gotten at least an older version of the IHSS contract. For anybody not familiar, IHSS works with the United Domestic Home Care Workers. It's a largely state and federal funded program that we pitch in a little bit of money for that provides in-home care and services for a lot of our most at-risk and elderly folks in our community. And these people are true heroes for the amount that they are paid to go door to door and do all kinds of things to help support people. It's really amazing work. One of the big things that the county provides for them is actually PPE, protective gear, hand sanitizer, gloves. That's something I'm absolutely committed to continuing to doing to keep you safe, especially during COVID. And it's a program that I would like to explore seeing expanded. We have a lot of seniors with needs in this community. We have a lot of people looking for employment that makes them, feel good about what they're doing and help the community. I think there's an opportunity there also with the fact that it's largely grant funded or federally and state funded to be able to get services here that are relatively inexpensive to the county. Thank you for that. Oh, I will put my website. Oh, never mind. Dana's on it. Say hi to Dana, everybody. Dana's running phone banking. If you have any questions on that, if you want to help volunteer, please message her or message me. We'll connect you to the right portal. Well, I think we're at the close here of our 30-minute mark. I really want to appreciate you for coming in, taking 30 minutes here to be able to watch this live stream. It's just a test, but it's so important to have, I think, public officials that you actually get to hear them speak, not just what's written on a piece of paper. And I got some notes here, but answer questions, hear what is important to you, and be able to explain their rationale and what they support. In our community, I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of seeing issues that people tried to address 20 or 30 years ago or 10 years ago, and it didn't work. And we're waiting on our leaders to lead us, to be able to address these issues with courage and to build coalitions and to get our community active. When going out door to door, you'd be amazed how many people don't really know what the county government does. They don't know what a county supervisor does. They've never had their door knocked before. It should not take a competitive election to finally learn who your public officials that have been serving you are. It's really a sad thing. I tell people, now I put up a lot of signs, but probably the biggest sign for me is if you don't know who the incumbent is after 8 years, it's not your fault, it's their fault. That's a sign. I really appreciate all of your support. If you like this type of thing, let me know. I'd like to do a live stream on a more continual basis and continue building that relationship with you. So voting starts before the election, about 1 month beforehand, October 3rd, and you're going to get a mail-in ballot. You can also take that mail-in ballot, fill it in, send it off by mail. If you're skeptical of that or you prefer to do another way, you can drop it off at several ballot drop-off locations. The easiest one is going to be at the library. You just drive by, shove it in there. You can also do it at the elections office directly over the counter. Know that it's received. If you're not registered to vote yet, and that includes if you've changed your name, if you've changed your place of residence, if you were under the age of 18 before the last election, any of those types of things, you can call into the elections office, ask them to double check. Please also go to where'smyballot.org. It'll help you track your ballot to make sure that you can have your voice heard in the election. And I will personally register you to vote if you are not currently registered. If you think your vote doesn't matter, ignore the presidential level, ignore the congressional level. I lost in March by 39 votes. This was decided in the previous election by 296 votes. One person makes a huge difference at the county level. And if you get involved, even more so. If you have any questions about the election or anything else, please feel free to reach out. And I really appreciate it, everybody. Thank you for tuning in.